right, let's get reaction now from the Jacob Zuma Foundation. We're joined now by the spokesperson, Mzwanele Manyi. Good evening, Mr. Manyi, and thank you very much for your time and joining us tonight here on In Focus. It's been the general reaction from the NPA, but also SANEF has now issued a statement also saying this is clear intimidation solely intended this time around to silence a journalist, but the NPA saying it's intended to silence the prosecutor. How do you react firstly to that?
Yeah, good evening, Thabo, and to the rest of your viewers. Let's first of all pick up on the choice of words about intimidation. This is perhaps because NPA intimidates people using the powers they have. We've just seen recently they have failed to intimidate Mandla Msibi into stepping out of the various political race in Mpumalanga. They continue to intimidate Bongo, even though the courts keep acquitting him. So indeed, they think that because they are on the business of intimidating people, that all of us are in that business of intimidating people. The fact of the matter here is that we are following the law. The law is very clear on the matter. The law simply says, Section 41, subsection 6, is very clear that no person, okay, underline this, no person shall disclose any information to another person. This is what it says. And what has happened? Did this happen? Yes, it has happened. What has happened? The information, and we're not here dealing even with the detail of what was contained in that information. We're simply dealing with the principle as espoused by the law. The law says no information shall be given by no person to no other person. But we've got persons in the NPA by the name of Downer and Breitenbach that have given information to another person who happens to Karen Mon, who has also given information to other people, which happen to be the public. All of this is what the head is prohibiting. And the Act is so serious about this. This case is probably even more serious than even murder cases, because I've seen people serving 6-year sentences, 10-year sentences on murder cases. This case here is a 15-year jail term. That's how serious this case is. So indeed, we are pressing ahead with this case, and we want to see justice being done.
So the NPA in KwaZulu-Natal seems to believe that there is no evidence that would have a successful prosecution. In other words, they are not seeing the evidence that you're saying it's so obvious of the contravention of Section 41, subsection 6 of the NPA Act.
We're not surprised, because NPA generally does not follow evidence, they follow people. So for them not to see evidence is not surprising. The fact of the matter is that it's on affidavit, I can even send it to Newzroom. It's on affidavit of Breitenbach that he submitted in court in Pietermaritzburg, both Breitenbach and Downer, where they were admitting to them keeping Karamon. They've even got times in that affidavit, at this time, at this date, at this time, that they gave this information to her. And if you look at those times when they gave this information to her, it was not public information yet at the time of giving her this information. So they've given this information and they're on record having done this in their own affidavit. So in other words, I think another case which we should pursue is perjury again, because it means they've lied under oath, as it were. So this information is there, and the information was tweeted, and looks like quickly when Karen realized that it was brought to her attention that what she has done is unlawful, quickly deleted the tweet and all of that. But we've got all of this thing ready for the court, and we will show her all of these things in court. We will show Downer and Breitenbach their own affidavits in court where they had made these admissions themselves. So when they say there's no evidence, as I said before, we're not surprised, because it's not the policy of the NPA to follow evidence, they follow people.
Yeah. So it's your session then, and your argument that the information that was published by the journalist Karen Mon was not public record. She seems, via the statement by SANEF, to be of the view that it was public record and not confidential at that stage of it being published.
No, you see, here's the issue. At this point of her receiving that information, the act of receiving information that is in the NPA's preview, that on its own is the unlawfulness that we're dealing with. Let alone for her to publish it and what have you. The fact that you've received information you should not have received is on its own a transgression. And in fact, I think I'm also disappointed at SANEF with their statement, because what SANEF is saying, and it's actually against the rest of the other media houses. What SANEF is saying is that let's have News 24 as a privileged news organization that must get information before others. In fact, Newsroom should be angry about this, that you've got journalists that get, or news media houses that get information ahead of time. This is almost like leaking a judgment, which is something that tends to happen even in South Africa today. We can't have a situation where all other media houses must get information second-hand, others have got it first-hand before the time. So by the time you get to know about it, you analyze it, you are too late. Karen Moore has heard it overnight, has analyzed it, and then she appears as this clever person when in fact she's got more lead time than the others. That is actually unfair to the other media houses. I'm surprised that SANEF does not see this, which just shows that even they are not interested in media freedom. They are interested in protecting certain sectors, certain companies within the media, which is something that the media fraternity should frown on. SANEF is misrepresenting the people that it should be treating fairly.
Let's then talk about the big issue here was, of course, that you wanted Mr. Downer to not continue to lead the prosecution of the matter, Thales versus the Thales Zuma trial, I beg your pardon. But we now hear from the NPA that they are saying he will continue because they are vouching for his prosecutorial integrity and his professionalism. They're saying it speaks for itself.
Yeah, well, look, I think with different standards. They can continue saying whatever they want to say, but bottom line is that on the 10th of October, accused number 1 in a criminal case is Downer. And there is no way that President Zuma will be prosecuted by an accused person in a criminal case. That is just simply not going to happen. Let that be very clear. So this is what we're dealing with here. We're dealing with people that think they're above the law. We're dealing with people that think that this law applies to other people, doesn't apply to them. They've got something big coming for them. It's not going to happen. This is now the time in when we're changing the tide. We're going to make sure that the laws of this country apply equally to everybody, and there's not going to be any favoritism. So we're laying out the red gauntlet to them. We're saying, let's see what's going to happen. We're very clear it's not going to happen. We are not going to have President Zuma prosecuted by a person facing criminal charges, by a person who is an accused. How can it be that we have an accused person being a lead prosecutor? How is that possible? It's just not done. It's not going to happen, actually. So they're just talking because they've got the freedom of speech. But what they're saying means absolutely nothing.
Will you be willing to abide by the outcomes of the court?
What outcomes? If the court says what?
Whatever outcomes coming from the court. You've now taken the matter, private prosecution, whatever outcomes come from this process that you're pursuing, which will be done by yourself privately and defended independently by the various parties. The NPA will defend Downer. I see News 24 will stand behind their journalists. Will you be able to abide by the outcome of the matter?
If the court can process the information given to it and give it a pronouncement, we'll deal with that when we get to it. But in South Africa today, we've seen situations where courts, we've got the highest court in the land that at one point decided, because it's President Zuma, they decided that the normal procedures don't apply and they're going to put them aside because they want to deal with this particular individual. So if you've got that tone having been said by the highest court in the land, you can't make that kind of a prejudgment, because justice is not guaranteed in South Africa, and unfortunately, it just depends who is in the bench at that time. So if the people, if you look, for instance, Kuhn, in this judgment that they're saying the matter was dismissed at, in that judgment, Kuhn, the judge there, decided to include all manner of things in that judgment about the July riots of last year, the fact that President Zuma went to a funeral of his brother. What did all of that have to do with the case that Dana was facing. So we've got all these judges sometimes that say things that you just wonder as to which law are they practicing or what's going on here. So we've got that situation. So we can't categorically say what you want me to say, purely because our jurists in this country have not conducted themselves in a manner that is exemplary. So we'll have to just see it when we get there. But the bottom line is that if there's no justice on that day, we'll proceed until we get justice done.
Mr. Manyi, I appreciate your time as always. Thanks so much for coming on. Mzwanele Manyi speaks for the Jacob Zuma Foundation there. They will pursue the matter until justice is done.